Hi, Robert Cargill here in my office at the University of Iowa, and I wanted to do one last video very quickly on that looks at the base of this vessel that's on the front of this ossuary. Very quickly, Tabor and Jacobovici are claiming, this is in a documentary that's going to come out tomorrow night, April 12th on Discovery Channel. I think in the U.S. it's called The Resurrection Tomb Mystery. And in Canada, I think it's the same name as the book, The Jesus Discovery. One of the central aspects of this claim, of this theory that they found the earliest evidence of Christianity, belief in resurrection, etc., is that this is the sign of Jonah, and I'll highlight it here. They're arguing that this here is the sign of Jonah. What it is it's a Greek vessel. I've done other videos that show that there are handles up here and that are up here that they're simply not represented. Of course, they've got handles here as well. It's either a crater or a hydria or an amphora, something like that. You can see the rim up here. You can see the neck, the geometric designs. You can see the crater handles here. It's got this is very typical, and I'll show you this in a second. And then it's got a base. You're going to have a little semicircular base down here. But that's, of course, not what Tabor and Jacobovici want to believe. They want to believe that this is Jonah. And this, I kid you not, this is their claim, that this is the tail of a fish doing a nosedive, and that this is a stickman Jonah, and this is his seaweed wrapped head. I know you think I'm kidding, so here, let me back out of this. Let me take you over here to Dr. Tabor's blog, and you can see. I mean, here it is, Tabor blog, and he talks about the fish and the man, and the fish and the man. And one of the things he's trying to show is, again, we see this photoshopped image. This thing, I've said this before. I've written about it on my blog, robertcargill.com. I've done a video on this. This is just Photoshop. This is now, and they're admitting this now. This is CGI. This is like Avatar. It's computer generated. You can see all the little hashes. Can I get in here close? You can see all the little hashes that are photoshopped. You know, they erase the border. It's CGI, it's not realistic. But that doesn't stop Dr. Tabor from using it as an illustration. So you'll make a note that a lot of the things that they're using, and of course their excuse is that, well, we can't get to the real tomb. It's sealed in the ground. Okay, but they're certainly not using the photographs, the untouched photographs, as much as they're using the museum quality replica and this photoshopped image. And this is, again, Dr. Tabor's own blog, and he wrote this article called The Fish and the Man, where he's trying to articulate what he sees in this Greek vessel. Now keep in mind, this Greek vessel is too long, it's too narrow, they didn't adjust it right. Again, this is just Photoshop. This is all computer generated here. But nonetheless, what he's arguing is that this is the tail fin of the fish, these are the little fish flippers, and that this is the head of a stickman Jonah here, and his, I don't know, his legs and his arms, and that the fish is spitting out Jonah. And that, of course, because Jonah spent 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, that's just like Jesus spending 3 nights in the tomb, and therefore the sign of Jonah, this here, is therefore a symbol of Christian resurrection. And it was in the 3rd and 4th century. You know, later on, the sign of Jonah became a symbol. You do get a talk about the sign of Jonah being about resurrection in the Gospel of Matthew only, not in Q. You do get mention of the sign of Jonah in Q, but it's a sign of repentance. But in Matthew, it does talk about it being a possible symbol for resurrection. Now, whether that text was added in later or what, we can discuss that some other time. Anyways, I'm not kidding when I say they believe that this is a fish and that this is the seaweed wrapped head of a stickman Jonah coming out of the fish, and therefore that's a symbol for Christian resurrection. Okay, back to the video, back to the Photoshop here. They reconstruct this like this, right? Now here they've actually got it widened out a little bit more what the image actually looks like. The guys who made this this replica, by the way, actually did a good job. But they forgot the little handles. That's a different video over here. And of course, they represented the vessel here. These fish are not little fish swimming in the margins. They digitally ink that, and that their tails don't cross, etc., etc. That's just to prime your brain with the hopes that you'll see this as more of a of a fish and not a vessel. Okay, enough of that. This is the actual photograph. Now, of course, they put this on the Jesus Discovery website, but it's rotated. This is the ground down here. This is the top up here. But they turned it this way so that it would look like Jonah being spit forth from something that is more along the lines of the natural orientation of a fish. But this is not in its proper orientation. So let's rotate this counterclockwise 90 degrees. There. That's what this is. Now you got the ground on the bottom and the top of the ossuaries up here at the top. So this is what we're looking at. And we're going to go ahead and blow this up. So the argument is that this is the head of Jonah wrapped in seaweed. And it's a verse out of Jonah. I think it's chapter 2, but don't quote me on that. But this is the seaweed wrapped head of Jonah. Here's his little stickman body being spit out of the head of this fish. That's the claim. Here's what I think's actually going on here. This is a vessel. When Zvi Elan reported this, and Amos Kloner excavated and investigated this tomb back in 1981, they called this a vessel. It's an amphora, they specifically said. And this would, of course, become the base of the vessel. Now, I wrote a piece on my blog that basically suggested this. What they're trying to do is execute a half circle, a half of a sphere. Now, don't look at the tops of these vessels, just look at the bottoms. But you can see here and see here that it's very common to try to have a half circle as your base. And what's going on in this video is the artist, it's just a graffiti artist, this isn't a professionally made thing, it's just a graffiti, right? He's trying to execute the base of a vessel, right? Here's the bottom of the vessel, and the vessel goes on up. And of course, if we go back over here to Dr. Tabor's, again, this is Photoshop here, but I wrote about it over here on my blog, a possible solution to this. So you come down here and you can see that what's probably going on at the base of this vessel is they're trying to represent this. And they're going to do it in one of two ways. They're either trying to do it in perspective, which I've drawn down here, and if you look very carefully here, you can see that you've got the top of the circle, and this isn't a circle. See, Dr. Tabor drew it over here on his website as a perfect circle, as if it were the head of Jonah, of a stickman Jonah being spit, but it's not a perfect circle. Again, this is misrepresenting the evidence. I don't know how nicer or more professionally to say that. This is not a circle. I mean, he drew a circle, but this is not a circle. If you look closely at the untouched photograph, again, if you look at the untouched photograph that Dr. Tabor, that the JesusDiscovery.org website posted, this is not a perfect circle. What you can clearly see, let's blow it up here so you can see it even better, you can clearly see that it's a semicircle, that it comes up, it's round on the top, that is, it's round on the area closest to the bottom of the vessel, and then it comes down here, and it's not flat, but it's just it's almost flat, but it's a little bit of curve here. So it's basically a half circle, a round at the top here, and then a little bit of a slight curve here, but it's basically flat, a little bit of a curve. And I think what's going on here is they're attempting to represent what you see over here. It's just a half circle, and then it's not flat, even though the bottom of it's flat. In this view, it's just a little curve, but you can obviously tell they're trying to represent something flat. Here again, we know that it's sitting on the ground. It's flat on the bottom, but it looks like a slight curve. Here you see the top, it's well-rounded at the point where it comes in contact with the vessel, half circle, and then it's got a little curve. And that's what's going on here. You've got a full circle, just like you have over here, a full circle, and then you've got just a little curve, but it's flattened out away from the vase. And of course, it's a full circle here on the place that's closest to the vase. So he's trying to represent one of two things. Either he's trying to show it like you see in these photographs of the vases, a half circle, and then flattened, just like curve, and that's what you get. Or one other option is that he's trying to represent something in perspective. Now, this would be innovative because it's centuries, if not a millennia, or before you get actual drawing in perspective. And then you can see a line here right? You can see kind of the point that I was trying to make is all of the lines above this line, I call this red line here, all of the lines above it are kind of curved, as if they're trying to articulate or demonstrate that this is a top of a curved area here. So see, all of these lines are kind of curved downwards at the ends, upwards in the center. It's trying to represent this. See how these lines are kind of curved? But the lines under this line here, see this here, are kind of curved upwards at the end. So I think maybe he's trying to execute that this is a half circle with a flat bottom, and then of course he's maybe showing you the underside of it. If not, if you don't like that, then what he's trying to do is just draw a regular half circle. It's a standard base that you find on all kinds of vessels in antiquity. It's just a half circle and with a flat bottom. That's what's going on with the Jonah's seaweed wrapped head. If you look closely at their own photo, you can see it. Round at the top, kind of slight curve, flattened at the bottom, and they're trying to represent this. What they're not doing is what Dr. Tabor and Simcha are arguing, is that Jonah gets converted to a stick man and then gets seaweed wrapped around his head, and then he gets inverted, and then somehow he gets massively shrunk, and then you add some extra feet down in here. Please don't think this is anything other than a poorly executed attempt to recreate the geometry right above the base, and you end up with this photoshopped image of seaweed wrapped Jonah head stick figure in a fish. This is unsustainable. This is far more likely what's going on. It's a vessel, and they're trying to draw the base of the vessel. Thanks for watching.